Good evening, students. Good afternoon, students. I hope everyone is here.
Was quite a few I have taken during this period. Quite a few I have taken during this period. I think hang हो गया था कुछ, but anyway, what I tried to say was that I had a slow start to this month with YouTube session, but now I am taking. Welcome all of you to Unacademy, the platform on YouTube. This is our one-stop solution for cracking all the management exams. So we are India's largest e-learning platform. I have taken during this period. नहीं हैंग हो गया था कुछ बट एनीवे right, so we have been noted players in the fields of NEET, JEE, etc. for quite a few years, as well as school tuitions, but now coming up in management as well. This is a brief profile of myself. My name is Aritro Dasgupta, and I have been with Unacademy now for more than 2 months. I'm an MBA in Forest Management from the Indian Institute of Forest Management in Bhopal. I've served a decade's experience in different areas. In fact, a bit more than a decade. It's my 11th year running right now. My work experience has primarily been in the areas of teaching, training, strategy consulting, and in content writing. Mm, my experience has predominantly been in India, but I've also worked in the Middle East and been published in the USA. And of course, the last 5 years I have been specifically involved in the coaching segment. So rank holders for several exams such as CAT, CLAT, DUJAT, etc. have been my students during this period. Of course, so far it's been mostly from contact classes. Now I'm pretty certain this will also repeat with online classes as well. My experience has predominant. Right. So what all you're going to get from the Unacademy platform, let me quickly share with you guys. You get unlimited access, first of all. The moment you are enrolled with us, you can go through n number of sessions. There are no limits. The course content is structured from the head office in Bengaluru. There are live tests and quizzes as well. Let me just show that to you guys. So basically on the right hand side, you can all see there is this YouTube chat window. तो यहाँ पे आप लोग लिख सकते हैं कुछ भी आपको पूछना हो और मैं आप लोगों से भी सवाल पूछ सकता हूँ यहाँ पे. So do make use of this thing. When it comes to daily live classes, I have been taking live classes for quite a few days now, continuously. Today I have 3 sessions on YouTube. Tomorrow as well I have, I think, one on YouTube, one on unacademy.com, so on and so forth. So, this is sort of a trend that keeps on going on. Um, I would also like to introduce you guys to our channel, which is Let's Crack Management Exams. So I can see somebody else is here. So please do comment whatever you would like to state. I'll be happy to interact, whatever your questions. So this is our channel. You can get a list of all the videos here. If you see on the right hand side, uh, For example, today I took this session. I'm taking this one now. Yesterday I took this session. There was also one more which I took yesterday. So on and so forth. There are these newspaper sessions, also current affairs classes, quite a few. Um, so on the 31st, for instance, I took two sessions. This is also there. ठीक है, तो ये सारे सेशंस आपको मिल जाएंगे, नॉट जस्ट ऑफ माइन बट ऑल्सो दी अदर एजुकेटर्स who are part of our platform. Okay, so these are some of our top educators. You can take a look at their names. This is a slightly older screenshot, but basically just to give you an idea, I'm sure their numbers have increased drastically by now, but this is just to show you how you receive the notifications from the different trainers. This is, of course, a small list. We have many more top educators. You also receive live classes. उसके लिए आपको notifications मिलती है. So plus की जो classes आप free में attend कर सकते हैं. Just to get an idea of how it works. So for example, if somebody wants to learn regarding profit and loss, you can go through it on this platform, like this class, which has been mentioned. You can also join specific batches for course completion. So for instance, there is one batch which is at the bottom. It is only for one subject, which is English. And of course, that is why there's only a single educator. ऊपर आप देखेंगे तो it is for the entire syllabus. That is why it includes a number of educators, because that covers all the subjects. I told you about the schedule. Even if you miss a live class, मैंने आपको archives दिखा दिया. आप पुराने sessions देख सकते हैं. आप download कर सकते हैं sessions और बाद में देख सकते हैं. As long as you have your mobile devices, it doesn't matter. You can take up classes anytime. There is also no language barrier because we are available in 16 different languages. Including English, Hindi, Malayalam, and Tamil. Right? So language is just a medium of communication. You can interact with your educator to get your doubts cleared. मैंने आपको अभी अभी दिखाया था this chat window. Let me show that to you again. ये रहा chat window. कुछ भी topic हो, please feel free to communicate with us on this, including English, Hindi, Malayalam, and Tamil. Right, there are live polls as well. This live poll feature can be used on YouTube, but it is more of a redeeming feature on unacademy.com. So I do have one class, I think tomorrow, so do watch out for that as well. Besides the quizzes that we give you on the spot, you also have nationalized quizzes, nationalized tests. So what happens in this is that they follow the exact exam pattern. So for example, if it's for CAT or ZAT or MAT or CMAT, you get exact format of that style. So you can actually prepare yourself and you understand where exactly you are in right now versus the rest of the competition. And similarly, after each test, you get to receive a detailed report and analysis of the same. You also get PDFs and learning material, and you can download them to get the material for you. This is my code at the bottom. Please take a look for enrolling at unacademy.com. You can use this code, so you will get a flat 10% off. ठीक है, सो एक बार देख लीजिए, उसके बाद मैं आज की पढ़ाई स्टार्ट करता हूँ. Right, I think you have gone through this, and I think you can clearly understand that the longer a course you take, the better is the bang per buck, better is the value for money that you will arrive at. Right, so on that note, I'm done with the introduction on unacademy.com. Now I will start with the content for today, which, as you know, is the daily newspaper readings. Yesterday, I conducted two sessions, yesterday's and that of day before. Today, I'm going to do for today, which is, as usual, I'm going to start with your favorite newspaper, which is The Hindu. The Hindu is generally considered to be the best newspaper when it comes to all kinds of entrance exams in India. So I'm keeping up with that. Of course, I am open and I do use other newspapers as well. You might be aware I've used Times of India. Of course, I do use on a daily basis. I've also used Hindustan Times and the Indian Express earlier for your classes. I may also start with some business papers in the future. That's on the horizon. Business papers will get more relevant around December, January when you have your GD results out of CAT for GDPI, etc., VAT, extempore. Right. So starting with it, the first news which I want to talk about is the fact that officials have confirmed along the border with China that there have been two isolated incidents of firing on the south bank of the Pangong So. Pangong So is the lake in Ladakh, which is on the Indian side of the LAC, or the line of actual control that demarcates the boundary between India and China. So this has been confirmed today. In fact, or rather, yesterday there was this meeting between the External Affairs Minister of India, Mr. Jaishankar, with the Chinese counterpart, External Affairs Minister, Mr. Wang Yi, also including the Russian External Affairs Minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov. So, Mr. Lavrov was actually the intermediary. The three parties had met. This is on the sidelines of the SCO meeting. So, SCO includes 8 countries, also includes Pakistan besides these three, and 4 countries of Central Asia. And beyond that, so those are the 8 members. But on the sidelines, you also had a trilateral Indo-China-Russia meet, and also now a bilateral meet between India and China. So the results of the India-China meet have not yet been declared in the open, but India-Russia-China deal meeting has come out pretty positively. The Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Qureshi, um, has, however, emphasized that India's expansionist actions have been. So he's actually referring to Article 370 being abrogated in Jammu and Kashmir. That has apparently triggered these issues. India has not responded yet to Pakistan's comments. Delhi seeing a record number of testing and thus also a record number of cases. Yesterday saw 58,000 tests being done, 4,300 plus cases emerged of COVID-19 yesterday in Delhi. Another really important thing that happened yesterday, however, was the inauguration of the Rafale jets. This was done in Ambala. They are now being integrated with an existing squadron. So to inaugurate that, there was the Defense Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, also his French counterpart, because remember, Rafale, originally produced by a French company, Dassault, it has been imported from France. Her name is Miss Florence Parly. She was also present in Ambala, as was the Air Force Chief, the Air Chief Marshal RKS Rakesh Kumar Singh Bhadoria. He was also present. So all the three of them were present during this inauguration. There has been a case reported in Uttar Pradesh, or rather a couple of cases in Uttar Pradesh, where faulty COVID kits have been purchased by the local authorities for excessively high prices. And this was actually true in some of the most remote of areas, including the Gram Panchayat. So a lot of the Gram Panchayat officials might be colluding with some unethical practices, which has led to expensive COVID kits, more pricey than what is the actual price. This issue has been raised by some of the local leaders, including by Mr. Om Prakash Rajbhar, who heads the party SBSP, or Suheldev Bharatiya Samaj Party, which is actually a constituent unit of the NDA. So these cases have been found in Gram Panchayats in the districts of Sultanpur, Ghazipur, Bijnor, and Barabanki. Quite a bit of distance between these places. So who knows, other places may also be. discovered. Sticking with Uttar Pradesh, 7 people have died in a spurious liquor case in in the Chamrawal village in the Bagpat district. Also, two died in the Mirpur Jakheda village in Meerut. That has been the overall case. The India-China impasse on the border is also leading to local people facing a lot of hurdles in their movement. For instance, recently a woman in Ladakh was she passed away not because of the war, due to some other reasons, but it's taking 7 days merely for her body to be transported. In fact, there is this community in this region called the yeah, it's the Balti community, which is around the Baltistan area, Baltistan. So they have actually formed a WhatsApp group which includes people on both sides of the divide, on the POK side as well as on the Indian side. So this WhatsApp group is what coordinates things together. Right. So these are a couple of troubling issues which are taking place. The NGT, or the National Green Tribunal, which is the apex court for all environment and forest related cases, they have asked for rules to be framed for the disposal of cigarette butts and also for BD disposable. So this is following a report which was filed by the CPCB, or the Central Pollution Control Board. The NGT has asked that within 3 months, a proper rule should be laid out on how cigarette butts can be disposed of. Cigarette butts, I can assure you, is a problem not just in India, but the disposal is a problem in several countries of the world, including some of the richest ones. I can talk about Abu Dhabi in UAE, a spotlessly clean city, but with one problem: cigarette butts all over. And this is something I have noticed in other places. The Middle East does have that issue. Uh, which is why this is becoming a contentious issue. However, there is an educational institute, the IITR, which is the Indian Institute of Toxicology Research. They have confirmed that the remains of cigarette butts, they are not as harmful to the environment as was formerly believed, or as was the NGT or the CPCB are considering, because they do not really contain a lot of the poisonous stuff. The poisonous stuff remains only a small percentage. The fact that there are so many butts, that is a problem. Generally, it's a hazard, but it is like any other waste. It is not particularly a very bad waste. It is just the usual paper stuff. Cellulose acetate is actually a major component of cigarette butts, along with the wrapping paper and rayon. However, the toxicity date is usually not mentioned on these butts, which is what leads to indiscriminate, uh, you know, uh, throwing by the people. So this is one of the issues that has been highlighted here in this report. Okay, moving on to some of the local pages. In Delhi, there is the metro services are set and have restarted. Today is the last of the stages, because we are seeing graded stages. On day one, it was only the yellow line and Gurgaon's rapid metro which began. After that, there was a day when blue and pink line restarted. So under the last phase today, the red, violet, and green lines became sorry. Yesterday, these three became operational. Today, there will be the last two, which includes the magenta line, which is rings shaped, Janakpuri West to Botanical Gardens. There's also the grey line, which is the most newly opened one. This is between Dwarka and Najafgarh. I have not traveled on this as yet. It is so new. Not, I mean, I was a really regular metro traveler, so yeah, that is quite a bit of a thing. Otherwise, most of the trains have been running. In fact, on Thursday till 7:30 p.m., there was an 84,000 ridership that was found out. Under this present, the one which is beginning today, the stage two, the hours will also be extended. Initially, it was only for a few hours in the morning, 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the evening, 8 overall. But now it'll be 12 hours overall in a day, 7 a.m. in the morning to 1 p.m. In the afternoon, and the second half is 4 to 10 p.m. So that is a total of 6 plus 6, 12 hours. right? The magenta line will see 26 trains making 318 trips today, right? While the gray line will see two trains making 135 trips. It's a pretty short line so far. It is only a 4 kilometer long line as yet. The Noida based Noida to Greater Noida Aqua line has also begun its work. Kolkata has also announced its dates for the resumption of the metro service. I think they are for 12th or 13th, one of these two dates. It's corresponding with NEET because obviously students appearing for NEET, they do need to travel many times on public transport. Right, the rest of it is mostly local news, so I don't want to get into much of it. The Delhi Development Authority and the Common Service Centers have actually tied up to help the residents of illegal colonies. Illegal colonies, as the name suggests, they're illegal, and so they often come up in an unorganized manner. So the authorities often push them hard, and what happens is because of some new construction, legal construction, these people get moved out. They are not often not well rehabilitated. So that is where some of the political parties were also campaigning recently, and maybe that has spurred, but or whatever is the reason, the DDA and the CSC will now be working together to look into the concerns of residents at illegal colonies. Manish Sisodia, the Delhi Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, he's from the Aam Aadmi Party. He has assured all hoteliers. Hotels, meanwhile, have only recently restarted, and even more newer has been the restarting of liquor services within hotels or and restaurants. Manish Sisodia has assured hoteliers that there will be support from the Delhi government. Right, moving on, there is a new farm ordinance that was passed in Haryana. So there are some farmer groups that are protesting against that. I had told you earlier some of the political parties in Punjab, and now in fact the Shiromani Akali Dal has written to the center to include Punjabi as one of the official languages for Jammu and Kashmir because there is a significant Punjabi speaking population along the border areas, especially around Jammu. There is this the Naxalite group in Odisha, which who have killed two SOG personnel, which is Special Operation Group, who were fighting against this left-wing extremism. In Madhya Pradesh, recently a mental health helpline was started. So, as per the National Health Mission, as per the report by the NHM, most of those people who are calling for mental health, they are actually somewhat or the other related to COVID-19. Just shows that the pandemic is far more than just the disease itself. It actually covers many more things. Um, Okay, so I had told you once about the Bru refugees. Brus are a tribal community originally from Manipur, but they have been relocated in a couple of parts in neighboring states of Mizoram and uh, Tripura. So they were the victims of ethnic violence, which is what displaced them. So 6 camps in North Tripura were arranged for them. This was in joint consultation with the different ethnic groups. But now the Bengali group and the Mizo group, Bengalis are the largest single group in Tripura, making up a vast majority, almost three-fourths of the population of the state. So the Bengalis and Mizos, they are not happy with this latest relocation, stating that this will alter the demographics of the region. Earlier today, you might remember I was doing April current affairs, और मैंने आपको एक point बताया था कि there's something about a Diksha portal. So there is this Diksha portal which has been started by the Ministry of Education, and that looks into online teaching. So now the center, the High Court of Maharashtra, has actually asked that this Diksha portal should assess e-learning for specially able students or physically disabled. मैंने आपको बताया था इसके बारे में earlier today, but of course now it becomes all the more relevant. Right, so the district social welfare authorities need to monitor digital education programs so that the differently abled are able to carry out their work properly. Right, I'm now going to move to the editorial page, obviously one of the most important ones in the newspaper. There were a couple of students a while back, so I wanted to check on them. Anyway, the first article I want to discuss with you relates to agriculture, and this is something even I have probably, you could say, make the mistake, or maybe I was being too optimistic. We have spoken of agriculture as one of the saviors this year. You know, by and large, economy, industry has gone, services, they've all gone down so badly this year. But agriculture, we have seen good amount of acreage planting this year. So that has led to many people saying that agriculture will actually rescue us. Now, Mr. R. Ramakumar, he's the NABARD chair professor at the TIS or Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. He has written an extensive article on how this is a flawed claim. The topic says an agriculture-led revival as flawed claim. The sub headline is the crisis in agriculture demands that the government announce a strong fiscal stimulus for the rural economy. Um, right. So he's actually argued this entire thing. There are four major shall we say, four major points that have come out in support of this point by the authorities. One of them is that agriculture will lead India's. Okay, let me give you the four major arguments in favor of this point, which general public is making. One of them is that India's food grain production in 2019-20 was 3.7% higher than in 2018. This actually led to increased procurement of rabi crops, wheat being the most important of them, which was 12.6% higher in 2019-20. This is the first point. The second point is that food inflation in 2020-21 so far has been 9.2% higher than the previous years. This shows uh, sustained demand. The third point says that the area under Kharif sowing, again this year 2020-21, is 14% higher than last year. Higher sowing is accompanied by tractor and fertilizer sales, which again bodes further for economic recovery. And fourthly, the economic package for agriculture as part of the 20 lakh crore Atmanirbhar Bharat package will further revitalize agriculture. So now let us analyze each of these four claims one by one. First of all, there is this factor about rabi production being actually more than last year and thus greater, procurement. So let's take a look. The writer, Mr. Ramkumar, he says that this report actually hides more than what it reveals, because as per official data, only 13.5% of all paddy farmers, paddy meanwhile is one of the most, rice is one of the most important crops of the rabi yield. So only 13.5% of rabi paddy farmers and 16.2% of wheat farmers in India sell their harvest to a procurement agency at an assured MSP. MSP is minimum support price, right? The rest, which is the vast majority, you can very well do the mathematics. They sell their output to private traders at prices much lower than the, or at least lower than the MSP. In that case, we should look at procurement, not procurement, because procurement is anyway a very small percentage. Even if procurement has seen a jump, because it's only 13% in the case of paddy, which is a rabi crop, then why bother about it at all? Mm, Sorry, wheat is a rabi crop. Rice is a summer crop. I probably got this. Anyway, so let's take a look at the procurement date. So this person, he's actually looked into 15 major crops and their availability in the market. He has taken the period of March 15th to June 30th, roughly coinciding with the period of the lockdown and the first quarter of this year. And he's looked into data both for this year as well as for 2019. So what his study arrives at is that market arrival of all 15 crops in 2020 is less than 2019. That's shocking, which means that overall even the procurement is higher. That procurement is only an official figure. Actual availability in the mandi, in the market, is lower actually. So that doesn't really bode well. Only in the case of paddy, lentil, tomato, and banana, the market arrival this year has been 75% of last year's. Whereas if I look at wheat, barley, potato, cauliflower, cabbage, and lady's finger, Market arrivals were between 50 and 75 percent, and for some of them it was even less than half the figure. Um that includes gram, pigeon pea, onion, peas, and mango. So it was less than 50% of last year's market arrivals. Right, wheat, which is the most important rabi crop, only 61.6% of the arrivals in 2019 was recorded in 2020. Right, and this does not even look into several crops which face massive problems. So if I look at the broader agriculture, because agriculture also looks at animal husbandry, so if I look at milk, meat and poultry, there was a far greater loss. So in fact, the poultry industry alone apparently lost 25,000 crore rupees. That is a shocking figure indeed. ठीक है. Let's go to the next point, which is about inflation and prices. Uh, Again, the wholesale market prices for these 15 agricultural commodities were studied for the same period, 15 March to 30th June this year as well as last year. So on average, let me read out to you some figures. The average paddy prices were about 1,730 rupees per quintal on March 23rd, mm, but it was 1,691 per quintal in June, which means wheat prices meanwhile were 2,045 per quintal on 1st April. It was 1,865 per quintal on June 30th. Rice and wheat are the two most important cereals we produce. There was a minor uptick in a few vegetables, but not even that was only in June, but not before that, not in May or April. Um So in fact, a lot of this inflation is because of the disruption in the supply chains. This does not reflect into the prices that farmers receive. So this amount which I was talking to you, this is actually the price in the mandi. Mandi is where the farmers go and sell. So are farmers earning? No, it is because of the vagaries of the supply chain where transportation is not available, and labor is not there to carry goods. That is why the figure actually has gone up, the prices, but that has not led to any real income uh, for the people. The third one is higher Kharif sowing. Now, this Mr. Ramkumar says is largely expected. I mean, this is 1 year when this should have been done uh, because we saw many people returning to the rural areas from the urban areas where they were working as migrant workers. I use double quotes because they are Indians, so we should say internal migrants, but we've been increasingly using the word migrant labor. So anyway, not getting into that debate, but right, because the Rabi incomes fell during the lockdown, many rural households actually returned to farming or intensified farming for food and income security. Many of the people who were not completely into agriculture, or they were only seasonal agriculturalists, they got into agriculture as well. Also, land which was dry or fallow or unused, that also got used up for agriculture because people returned home, right? But there is massive, there are indicators of distress and not of prosperity, as the figures have been released by CIMA, or Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy. Uh, Number of persons employed as farmers increased from 11.2 crore in 2019 to 11.4 crore in 2020. But in June and July, the number rose further to 1.3 crores to 12.6 crores. So in just 1 month, in 1 year, we saw 0.2 crore increase, but in 1 month, in 2 months, we saw a further 1.3 crore rise. So this is definitely not a positive thing. Rural unemployment figures also rose sharply in 2020, 22.8% in April, by 21.1% in May, and another 9.5% in June. I mean 9.5 on in addition to the earlier one. So definitely, uh, even in August now that economy is somewhat kicking back to terms, but even now rural unemployment rates are higher than in Feb 2020 or August 2019. And finally, we look at the package from the Atmanirbhar Bharat package and how much has been the trickle down. Basically, agriculture contributes only 15% to India's GVA. GVA is gross value added. So even if agriculture grows by say 4%, the likely contribution of increase to will be only 0.6% of the total. because it'll be 4% on top of 15%. That's just a ridiculously low 0.6%. And to make it 1% growth, you'll have to have a 6% rise in agriculture. I hope you understood what I'm talking about. So definitely that is extremely high a figure, which is unlikely to be reached, to be so reached. Just give me a moment. The paper is, yeah, it's okay now. Okay. So thus, did not want to share such negative thoughts, but yes, indeed, it doesn't seem that agriculture can lead us back to revival. Right, moving on further, there's another article which is the great. Before I move to the other one here, he's also dissected some of the schemes such as the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi or the PM Kisan, and looked into how things could have been different. The MSP has only been increased by 53 of cotton by 260 per quintal. Quintal is a large figure, whereas it should have been at around 150% as per him, right? Even there should be some protection to milk producers. That's what the writer says. Anyway, I'm going on to the next article, which is about which is called the Great Graying of China. I don't know how much you took from this title. उसके नीचे लिखा, there is evidence that the country's aging population will incrementally impede its economic growth. This article is written by Mr. Yogesh Gupta, who is a former ambassador. It's not written here, but I'm assuming he was ambassador to China, which is why he's writing on China. So what he says is that the one-child policy which China implemented in 1979, this was because Deng Xiaoping, he became the leader of China after Mao Zedong, and during Mao Zedong's time, the most modest of figures say around 30 million, but he says around 60 million people died due to the disastrous policy effects of what is called the Cultural Revolution or the Great Leap Forward. These two movements, the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, they led to millions, tens of millions of people dying. And because the situation was so bad, both in terms of income and in terms of respect of the authorities, that Deng Xiaoping had to come up with something. So he came up with this one-child policy to reduce the dependence on, so that there is greater pool of wealth. However, the effects, according to him, I'm not sure whether I'll fully agree, but he says that the results have been disastrous. He says that the working population has reduced immensely. I'm going to first tell you what he says before I'll come to my point. In fact, I had shared something with you guys a few weeks back. I had described to you the recent Lancet study about the different populations and how Indian population is also going to be fairly stable in some time. I had told you about this particular aspect. Now, talking about this article, so the average birth rate in China has gone down to 1.6 births per woman. So per woman means man and woman, right? So for two, if you have 1.6, that means it is less than the so it is lower than the replacement level, which means China has actually since 2017 started experiencing a population decline. Um, some figures say it is as low as 1.05. The official figures say 1.6, but some say it is 1.05. Just to put things into context, India's is 2.24. Not bad, actually. We tend to think of India as a highly overpopulated country, which is going to reach 2-3 billion very soon. But our fertility rate is almost at 2. 2 is the exact, right? Because mother and father, so per couple, you just have to exactly the portion to replace them. The US has 1.77, so they are way below. US, obviously, the older people live longer, the life expectancy is long. So again, 1.77 is not far off from the replacement level. Fewer children were born, and in fact, even fewer women were born because of this preference for male child, which is there in lots of countries, lots of cultures, especially in Asia. So when you have one child per couple, the number of women is further less, right? So there is a research which has been done by Professor Yi Fuxian, who's from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the US. He reveals that China's population above 65 years was 10% in 2010, but it would go to almost a third of the population by 2050 at 32.6%. In India, the figure is 5.6% right now. It will be 14.2% by then. In US, it is 14.6% in 2010, will be 23.2% in 2050. The reason I'm comparing with these two is because these three are the world's largest economies by PPP. So it is quite natural you'll compare them. Uh, China and US, the top two economies, India and China, the two most populated countries. The labor force in China will also reduce. The labor force typically is the age of 20 to 64. This will reduce. In 2017, it was at 787 million. Remember, 2017 is when the population started regressing. It was about a billion in 2017, and it will go down to 787 million by 2050. 50. So the number of the limit of children has actually been increased. Now you can have two children since 2016. But even then, many families used to decades of the one-child policy. They are loath to have a second child uh, because they have experienced short-term prosperity with one child alone. If China can stabilize its fertility rate at 1.2, its population will fall to 1.07 billion by 2050 and 480 million by 2100. Um, he has also quoted, the writer has also quoted the Japanese economist Professor Hisakazu Kato. Uh, he's also given several other points to suggest that China is not so developed as yet to have such a low fertility rates. Low fertility rates are usually accompanied with extremely high education and prosperity rates, something which European countries and of course North USA, Canada, they have experienced. Not something that China should get into. This low labor will lead to reduced productivity. It will also lead to problems in the army. He says that apparently the military is not motivated enough because you have one child per problem. A lot of these psychological issues have been found with children who grew up in a one child family. Fair enough, I accept all of this, but I have one point which I want to ask. I'm sure he is really knowledgeable. He served as an ambassador, but I just have one question. Has the writer heard about AI, artificial intelligence, and automation? In the next 20, 30 years, this is not to scare any of you, but tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of us will be unemployable. It's not unemployed, but unemployable because our skills will be replaced by a robo, by a machine. We are already seeing that a lot right now. The pandemic has probably brought it even closer, thanks to the fact that we are doing everything online. So, will population reduction actually lead to lesser productivity? I'm not sure. Whether even these 480 million, which will be the working population, he's saying, even they will be employable, I do not know the way things are. I think a lower population may not be such a bad thing. So, not suggesting that anybody else should follow one child policy. All I'm saying is I'm not 100% sure of this article, right? Though I do understand there is he's done a lot of research in this. In the Hindu there is this feature. They have this one article from 50 years back, another from 100 years back. So 50 years back, quite a sad story from one of the zoos in South India, I believe, where in Chennai, then called Madras, and the pitiable conditions that animals live in. And I think the situation isn't much better now, though I haven't been to a zoo in a long time. I just hope things are better. One zoo I'll always name is One Vihar in Bhopal. It was so well maintained that it got upgraded to national park status. There's also Bannerghatta in Bengaluru, which has won acclaim likewise. There is another article on the difficulties of collecting COVID-19 data. Mm, uh, I also want to talk to you about an article which is about the BJP and the Shiv Sena, the former allies. They were allies for about 3 decades, but now mm, there seems to be an all-out war. I mean, this recent issue between Shiv Sena and Kangana Ranaut, although she's not officially a member of the BJP, but she has been a supporter, a vocal supporter, and BJP leaders have been supporting her. So it does seem to be a bit of a BJP Shiv Sena all-out war in Mumbai. So this has actually been analyzed how technically or theoretically both of them are Hindutva parties, but their ideology was limited to that. Although they had many other differences, BJP being a national party, Shiv Sena being a regional party, they always had their differences, and those have manifested openly now. The writer is Mr. Mohammad Ayub, who's a University Distinguished Professor Emeritus of International Relations at the Michigan State University. Finally, from the editorial, I want to talk to you. I don't want to get into this debate, but you can just all of you read this debate. So, there is this question which is being asked: how much is too much when collecting data for planning? So, basically, now there's so much of data. We've discussed earlier about data, and in fact, The Prime Minister earlier this year during Independence Day, he announced that an NDHM will be established, which is National Digital Health Mission, under which every person, every Indian will have a digital health card. So his or her health details, every checkup will further be updated on that card. A lot of the information to be fitted in will be optional, and it will also be anonymous so that it does not reach the next level. However, and this is only there to understand the trends, what kind of diseases or what kind of symptoms are currently going on, so that policymakers can take right decision. On paper, nothing wrong, but then that does raise questions about privacy. How strong will be the systems to protect it? So there are two people who are discussing this thing. One is Mr. Venkat Srinivasan, who is a Boston-based technology entrepreneur who deploys AI in finance, accounting, health, and education. There is also Mr. A.R. Nanda, who's a demographer who served as Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India, as well as the Health Secretary. So these two have had this debate on this thing. You guys can look into it, and do let me know your views as well. What do you think about data privacy, and how much or where should we stop? Right, Andhra Pradesh, we keep hearing contradictory information about this state. Last couple of days, some indexes they're right on top, some they're right on bottom. I'm a little confused about the state of situation. I do hope it is all positive. Now, Andhra Pradesh, the government says that 8.2% of the population has already been covered in the testing, and apparently the state is leading when it comes to testing. That's what the authorities confirm. The government of Punjab has addressed the central government uh, based based in Delhi regarding some social media sites which are so the Punjab government wants to block these because these are showing a lot of harmful content. The Director General of Police, Mr. Dinkar Gupta, he's the DG of Police of Punjab. He has come up with several sites. Facebook has recently blocked 47 such pages. Twitter has blocked 52, YouTube 21, and Instagram 1. These are, in addition, 292 more URLs have been submitted to this extent. There was this APRA Act which was passed in 2014, or Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. This was part of the partition of the state into Telangana and Simandhra, or which is Andhra Pradesh, of course. So, according to that, so recently, I think you might be aware, Andhra Pradesh has passed this legislation having three state capitals. This is something the center has accepted, and the center has also acknowledged that there is nothing much to be done about it, because as per the APRA, or the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act 2014, it is for extending financial assistance to building of a new capital, not to decide on which will be the new capital. So the state government is well within its rights to choose for itself. Right, doctors, with some of the temples reopening, doctors in Kerala, they have warned that the extremely important and sensitive Sabrimala temple this year only be visited by Kerala residents, not to be open to those from other states, in order to reduce the, shall we say, footfall, and thus reduce the potential of contact, since we are to maintain distancing, social distancing. The Communist Party of India, Marxist CPIM, in power in Kerala, they are going to protest against the rewriting of history. They feel that that is happening right now. So the Politburo member, Mr. M.A. Baby, he has spoken about the Malabar rebellion leaders whose names were removed recently from the list of freedom fighters, because there was a protest from the Sangh Parivar. That is what they have confirmed, the CPIM. There are some bypolls which are scheduled later this year, and I think the Election Commission of India has confirmed that by November 29th, all the pending bypolls and the Bihar election should take place. There are total 65 bypolls scheduled, 64 assembly segments and one parliament segment. So there are two assembly segments in Kerala which are to be held. One is Chavara and another is Kuttanad. The different parties in Kerala, there was recently an all-party digital meet where the ruling LDF, comprising of CPI, CPIM, CPI, NCP, and a few others, Also, the opposition UDF, including Congress, IUML, RSP, plus also the BJP, which is a third front, they have all met on this, and more or less they all agree because Kerala is going to have elections anyway next year. So that means that the bypoll is right now unnecessary because it's only a matter of about 6 months. Although technically no seat can lie vacant for more than 6 months, but in this case, thanks to COVID-19, because of the social distancing norms and the fact that the Disaster Management Act is in place, we could consider an exception. The ruling LDF and the opposition UDF also want the local body polls or the panchayat and municipal polls set for Kerala. They should also be postponed. This, however, the BJP is not supporting. They are suggesting it should take place at the required period. Mm, right. So Karnataka government has also decided to buy sarees from its weavers because weavers have been struggling for survival due to the recent economic crisis. The Golden Temple, which is the iconic temple Harmandir Sahib in Amritsar, the Gurdwara Harmandir Sahib, as it's officially known as, this has received FCRA registration. FCRA, I did talk to you a few days back about. So it is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, which, as the name suggests, regulates all kinds of foreign contribution, FDIs, etc. So under this thing, now that it has been registered, the Golden Temple Fund is now legalized to receive any funding from abroad. Right. So any association or NGO or registered society needs this FCRA clearance in order to receive foreign funds. So the Home Minister, Union Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, he has also applauded this move. Um, right. The election for the deputy speaker will take place in the Lok Sabha. Mr. Om Birla says that who is presently the speaker is the BJP MP from Kota in Rajasthan. He says that the Lok Sabha can now pretty much elect a deputy speaker. That should take place now. Right. There is also the Rajya Sabha deputy chairpersons voting, which I spoke to you about yesterday. The ruling NDA, which is ruling at the center in the Lok Sabha, they have reached out for the support. So I told you yesterday there are several parties which are neither part of India nor officially part of the opposition, like Odisha's Biju Janata Dal and Andhra Pradesh's YSRCP. Both of them have been contacted by the NDA to support its candidate, Mr. Harivansh Singh, who is from the JDU. JDU's Bihar rival RJD has fielded Mr. Manoj Sinha for this post, which the United Opposition will vote for. Right. There is some news regarding the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party. This has actually become the first party from India to come under the U.S. Foreign Agents Act. It has been registered. It's a first for an Indian political party, as confirmed by Mr. Vijay Chotiwale, who is the head, Foreign Affairs Cell Chief, Mr. Vijay uh, Chotiwale. Right, so the name of the body, it's a purely voluntary body. As per the report, there has been no financial transactions as yet. The name of the body is OFBJP, which is the Overseas Friends of the BJP. So this has been confirmed. Till now, no political parties were registered. It was only some media companies and lobby groups, as well as, but surprisingly, the main opposition party of Bangladesh, as well as a few parties of Pakistan, including the ruling party, they were registered under this act, but no Indian political party has received. Okay, moving on to the next page, the Serum Institute of India. So BJP, however, is denying this thing. They deny that this has been received. So there seems to be some confusion between the units in India and abroad. Anyway, moving on with the Bihar elections coming up, I've told you there are lots of political ramifications going on. So the Rashtriya Janata Dal's key leader, Mr. Raghuvansh Singh, he has quit the RJD and he is set to join the JDU, although it has not been confirmed, but reports suggest he might be um, making a move to the opposition JDU, which is in power right now. The SII, I told you yesterday, the Serum Institute of India, which is conducting the third phase of the COVID-19 vaccine trials, the AstraZeneca potential vaccine. They have now paused their trials because they have been asked to by both the Indian ministry as well as the home company. I can see there are a couple of people watching. Please do comment. I'll be happy to interact here. Right, so the SII has now paused the trials because there was one negative impact in the UK among the trialists. No fatality yet, but somebody reacted somebody reacted differently, surprisingly. So that's why they have now paused the trial. So over a period of time, there will be these reversals. That is something everyone working on a vaccine needs to be prepared on. This does not mean that this vaccine is out of the picture. This remains one of the 9 vaccines worldwide which are at the stage 3 of the trials. Right? Yeah, there is one very important piece of news between India and Japan. These two countries have signed a logistics agreement predominantly in the armed forces and, of course, predominantly in the Navy because Japan is a naval power. Both of these countries, they share quite a bit of naval space. So, Mr. Narendra Modi and his outgoing counterpart, Mr. Shinzo Abe, they did have a telephonic discussion, and the final deal was signed by the Indian Defense Secretary, Dr. Ajay Kumar, as well as the Ambassador of Japan, Mr. Suzuki Satoshi. So, this will, China was not openly mentioned in any of the documents, but it is expected that this is sort of a counter. Thing towards China's aggressive posturing across East and South Asia. Um, so, what are the areas which have officially been announced? One is unilateral training activities, United Nations peacekeeping operations, where two countries are highly involved. You also have humanitarian international relief and other mutually agreed activities. In fact, the two countries are also discussing the possibility of bilateral military exercises, which could soon be resumed. China was not openly mentioned in any of the documents. Right. There is news from Maharashtra and its neighbor of Madhya Pradesh. MP has reiterated that Maharashtra should not stop supplying medical oxygen because there is a major need in MP, and Maharashtra is one of the major suppliers. Maharashtra had reduced the supplying, but now Madhya Pradesh wants more of this. So there are two major sources in Maharashtra which are building this. The idea is to further encash on this. Right. This is my code. Just wanted to remind all of you, in case you are enrolling, do use this AD09. That will give you a flat 10% off. Army officers' training has also been delayed due to the COVID-19 protocols and the standard operating procedures that have been put in place, the SOPs. This was part of the OTA, or Officers' Training Academy in Chennai, where this is supposed to be held. It's a 750-acre academy, quite a major thing. There's some interesting news from the JEE main, the exam, where more than 8 lakh candidates, 8.58 lakhs candidates were registered to apply for it, but 26% of the candidates did not go for it. This is in contrast to last year, where only 6% of the candidates did not attend, 90% of them did appear. This year, 26% did not appear, predominantly because of the fears of COVID 19. The JEE advanced exam will now be held on 27th of September. Okay, so all those fans of Paresh Rawal, how many here watching this session are fans of Paresh Rawal? I definitely am one. Huge fan of his comedy. He actually started out, I remember in the 90s, early 90s, he had started out his career as a sort of a villain. He wasn't that successful as a villain. There's always that comic streak in him. So then he did get into comedy, of course, Hera Pheri, Hasina Man Jayegi, Chachi 420. and many others, where he's had iconic performances. So all Paresh Rawal fans should be really happy. He has been appointed as the new chairperson of the NSD, the National School of Drama, which is one of the NSD and FTII are generally considered. FTII is in Pune. NSD, of course, National School of Drama in Delhi. These two are considered the top schools for drama graduates or acting graduates. Paresh Rawal is now the chairperson. He's a recipient of the Padma Shri. He's even served in a term as an MP from Ahmedabad East in the previous this thing. So this post has been vacant since 2017 when Mr. Ratan Thiam, who's a playwright, his term got over. For almost 3 years, it was vacant. So finally, Paresh Rawal does fill the void. I'm sure he's going to do a cracking job. About a month back, we spoke about the blast in Beirut due to the ammonium nitrate thing. There has been another this thing um in Beirut, although this is less this thing less potent, it seems. AstraZeneca, in spite of its reversals, I told you recently there was one patient who responded not so well, but the company is still confident that these are minor setbacks which are expected to happen. But company has voluntarily paused trial. That's what they say, because of the unexplained illness in one volunteer. But they will continue with their trials, and they are confident that a vaccine could be possible before the end of this year. That's amazing if it does come up. About 30,000 people in the USA have already signed up for its trials, and that has begun since 31st of August. Also started elsewhere in South America. The vaccine is called AZD 1222. It uses a weakened version of a common cold causing code. So that's pretty much it. The United Kingdom is going to hold crisis talks with the European Union because of the Brexit bill. A no deal Brexit has been proposed, but we don't know how it's going to play. Donald Trump, meanwhile, has confirmed that he has acknowledged that he may have underplayed or downplayed the role of the virus, but he says that that was for a positive cause because he did not want to cause panic among the people. Right, Mike Pompeo. So recently we've seen Germany and UK both accusing Russia of wrongdoing in the Navalny case, where Navalny, one of the leaders of the opposition, was apparently poisoned, but Alexei Navalny, that's his name. But now the US Secretary of State, Mr. Mike Pompeo, has also reiterated the same, stating that this is a likely cause, that Russia does have to answer several things. There have been attacks in eastern Congo. 58 people have died, while in California, we are seeing wildfires blazing every day around 24 kilometers. It is progressing. There's also been a fire in a migrant camp in Greece. Migrants from neighboring countries. So Greece is fighting hard to keep them up. Now moving on to the business page, Reliance Industries Limited has become the first company in India to cross the $200 billion mark in terms of its market cap. At the end of the day, Reliance ended 7% higher than the previous day. The City Group will have its first ever female CEO, the first ever woman CEO. Her name is Jane Fraser. That's after Michael Korbath, who's going to step down in Feb 2021. He's been for 37 years, but now to be succeeded by the president, Jane Fraser. Right? She has earlier held top posts with Wells Fargo as well. So Yes Bank, I think you might be aware of this case involving Yes Bank. They have been among the highest suffering banks in recent years. A lot of debt is owed, but now fortunately they have paid a certain part to the RBI. 50,000 crore rupees has been paid back. There is a report that deficit monetization is also a last resort for several Indian governments, the center as well as several state governments, they might have to borrow even more. The CRISIL, meanwhile, which is a leading Indian credit rating agency, it's a subsidiary of S&P, Standard and Poor. They say that the GDP could shrink by about 9% for this whole year. The 23.9% was only one quarter, but for the rest of the year also, respite does not seem to be on the cards. It's going to be a 9% overall dip. Fuel sales have also dipped. In fact, there was a revival in the months of May, June, and July after the almost zero, almost as low of April, but August has once again seen a dip in the fuel sales. The diesel has actually fallen 12% since July, while total petrol products demand has slumped 16% on a year-on-year basis. The Birla Group, however, has confirmed that aluminum units, the upstream aluminum units, are working at full capacity. Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla has confirmed that Hindalco is the main Birla company which is into aluminum manufacturing. Right. Finally, to end the business page, I would like to talk about certain spices which India is exporting in large quantities because they have this immunity booster tag. It's a $3 billion spices export business, which has actually found an ally in COVID-19 spices. Mr. D. Satyan, who's the secretary of the Spices Board, he has confirmed that some of the products, I'll tell you the names: ginger, turmeric, coriander, and cumin, have shown considerable increase in sales compared to last year, April to July quarter. Most of this increased demand has been in the US and Europe. In fact, I told you a few days back how new diseases are being detected because people, too much of everything is bad. So people are consuming in excess quantities these products, which is why also leading to some health issues. However, till it is not severe, that should be fine, and at least India is making money in terms of foreign exchange. Demand has also increased from other countries like Bangladesh, Morocco, Iran, Malaysia, China, and Pakistan. Right, so there is overall a 178% rise in volume of exports and 129% in value, because the total this thing has been 449 crore, the exports. So doing pretty well this particular area. Finally, I move to the sports page. I'm going to close this session relatively quick because I've got another session today. It'll be boring for you guys to watch the same person again and again. For me as well, speaking so much. Thankfully, I've got this earphone and mic that does make my speaking much more controllable. Must understand. 178% right. This constant speaking can be tiring. So I need some boosters as well to my throat. Right. So on the sports page, this is going on. Of course, the U.S. Open. Dinesh Karthik, who's the captain of the Kolkata Knight Riders IPL team, he says, and I think I can fully understand, having seen matches on TV at least for the Eden Gardens. I've seen the Eden Gardens in front of me as well. He says that the team is going to miss the Eden Gardens immensely. That's the home ground of the KKR and one of the magnificent edifices in world sport. That feeling is going to miss. He also reiterates that the state of West Bengal and the city of Kolkata have, of course, seen COVID-19. They've also seen the cyclone Amphan, which is why they will be playing for the whole of the state. I think that's a great message from the team captain. The Jamshedpur Football Club, which is one of the teams in the ISL, they have roped in a Nigerian international footballer, Stephen Eze, who's 26 years old, played 13 times for the national team. He will be. I'll just connect the charger, then I will continue. Please give me a moment, all of you. Right. Right. Thanks for affording me this time. This is the code to remind you all once again. Right. There's this Thomas and Uber Cup which is scheduled for October. This is a badminton tournament where you represent your countries, not as individuals. It will be held in Denmark this year. Camps were scheduled for that in Hyderabad, but that has now been cancelled due to social distancing norms. Sebastian Vettel has signed a deal with Racing Point. He'll be racing for them next year. The anti-corruption unit has arrived in UAE, representing the BCCI. The sports minister, Mr. Kiran Rijiju, has assured that some of the shooters could also be given ammunition for home training, so that they do not need to travel, to other places for practice. So that will make them vulnerable to catching disease. Meanwhile, in the Tour de France, there is the Swiss rider Mark Hirschi who has won a first race of his professional career. The yellow jersey, which is worn by the overall leader, however, is kept by the Slovenian Mr. Roglic, who has been leading for a while now. Primoz Roglic, he's the favorite now to win the entire thing. He'll become the first Slovenian to do so if he does. The AFC Cup, or the Asian Football Confederation Cup, will not be held this year. The regulatory body of Asian football has confirmed. So on that note, I am pretty much done with the teaching part. I will keep the session open for a few minutes. In case you have any doubts and queries, you may ask me. This is my code. Make full use of this. You know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe, and promote the word ahead. Fair enough. I think we can wrap up the session. Thank you so much, guys. There's one more session today. Don't miss that. It's at 4 p.m., where I will be dissecting Indian polity for you guys. Not politics, but polity, the system behind the governance. So, see you all at 4 p.m. today. Thank you so much. Till then. डू सब्सक्राइब टू आवर चैनल क्रैक मैनेजमेंट एग्जाम आपको दिख रहा होगा मेरा कर्सर वहीं पे है तो इसको क्लिक कीजिए यू विल गेट अ होल लॉट ऑफ अदर वीडियोस आई थिंक देयर इज वन मोर सेशन फॉर यू यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है आरसी क्वेश्चन टाइप्स so you can go through all these sessions be very useful for you till then thank you so much all of